I wanted to record a video to walk through our enrollment process and the documents you'll find, that are a part of this. So the best way to do this is to look at this shared Google Drive we created for the Invictus 22 Plus program and go through each of the items, as well as just going through the general enrollment process and kind of the sequencing of how things are laid out. So let me get to the proper screen here. Let's see. Okay, great. So the first thing that I'll show you, we'll get into the Google Drive. I shared this Invictus 22 Plus team drive with you. If you go into your Google Drive, you'll be able to find it. When we open this up, obviously there's the quick access stuff, but if we look at the folders, there are two of them. Let's start with the folder that's labeled 22 Plus Enrollment Forms Invictus. So when we open this up, you're going to first find the application, okay? This is the most basic item that we have. Essentially, there are 3 pages to it. A student would fill out everything, and I know some of the questions are kind of weird, what ethnicity, what's the mother's maiden name. It is so important that every single line of this is filled out. The state requires this when we go to input and make a student application. If any of this information is missing, they can't officially be entered into the state system, and we end up having to contact the student again. So this enrollment form and answering every bit of it is very vital to either things that the state requires that we really don't care that much about, but are mandatory for state data entry, or there's important information that helps us build a plan when a student may or may not have a transcript yet. So knowing if the student was held back, what year they entered ninth, what grade they think is the highest they completed, how many credits they've earned, if they have to pass OGTs, based on their age, which ones do they project that they passed. All this information is either used in the state system or for us to build a plan to help them get started. Being thorough, answering all of this is really vital, for us to give the student kind of the best start. I know, again, this doesn't seem that important, but we do have kind of policies and procedures for students to follow. I think it's a key, even with adults 22 and up, that you lay groundwork for them to know that, things are going to be run in a particular way, and adhering to these policies is very important. So those are the 3 pages that they just fill out. There are documents that need to be collected. So the 3-page enrollment is kind of the starting point, but to enroll in the program, you must have. So the student or the interested adult fills all 3 of these pages out, but they also must give the person doing the intake birth certificate, social security card, driver's license, proof of address, and proof of address has to be within 30 days. It's, an energy bill, it's a bank statement, it's a rent agreement. It's something that has the student's name, address, and as I mentioned, a date within 30 days. Does it have to be within 30 days all the time? No, but if it's really old, it's not going to be accepted. So we usually like to get something that's very, very current, so there's no argument when we upload any of this into the state system. So those items, plus this is very important. We want a receipt or some proof that at minimum the student's transcript has been ordered. If the Cleveland Public Schools and surrounding schools are anything like the Cincinnati Public Schools, transcripts take 6 to 8 weeks to be returned on average for these older adults. Um, hey, hopefully things are a lot different, but we want to always make sure that the student is taking the action of at minimum ordering their transcripts. They don't need an official transcript. An unofficial copy is just fine. But to get started, a student needs a birth certificate, social security social security card, driver's license or state ID, proof of address, and at minimum, a receipt or some proof that they've ordered their transcripts. Ideally, having their actual transcript, either official or unofficial, it doesn't matter. But having all that information put together is mandatory for them to actually start taking classes. Okay, so let's look at this again. They fill out the enrollment form, which are those 3 pieces of paper they would give to whoever's doing the enrollment or student intake, the documents that we just talked about, and that kind of gets the ball rolling. Once those items are collected in that enrollment forms filled out, they move on to the next step, which is not starting class. The student fills out what we refer to as a CTE, a Career Tech Elective Form. Okay? The CTE has 3 categories: the student's job, the hours, and the credits that would be awarded from those hours. Okay? Here is the breakdown. For every 120 hours a student works, it equals 1 career tech credit. That means they don't have to work that much to get a huge amount of credits. Here's what needs to be placed on this jobs form. I'm going to go ahead and show kind of a filled out example of what a CTE form looks like. Let me actually go into another drive to do this. Let me go into my Claremont County one. Just bear with me here. I'm going to show what a CTE looks like when it's filled out, that is. Okay. I know Jonathan has filled out CTE in his file because I looked at it earlier today. 3 categories again: jobs, hours, credits. Jonathan had filled this out. So his job was retail sales at Sprint. That's the company. From 2012 to 2013, it was full-time. So he had a year of full-time work doing retail sales at Sprint. He did customer service, troubleshooting, and customer conversations. If you think about it, 40 hours a week, right? If he's full-time, times 50 weeks. So, the state makes this pretty, basic. They think 50 weeks is kind of like a full-time schedule for an employee. They give that employee 40 hours a week if they're saying full-time. So for every full-time year of work, very simple, it's 2,000 hours. So again, under jobs, you put kind of the position type, retail sales in this case, the company, Sprint in this case, the years worked, 2012 to 2013, in Jonathan's situation, part-time or full-time in this circumstance, and then bullet 3 descriptions of the position. In his situation, customer service, troubleshooting, customer conversation, and then the hours. Again, full-time, 50 weeks, 40 hours a week, he's got 2,000 hours. And if we look at the translation, 120 hours equals 1 credit. 2,000 hours means he has more than 9 credits. In no scenario, no matter how old or young a student is, there's no situation where you need more than 9 elective credits. So to get 1 full-time year of work experience, no matter who that person is, they have satisfied all the elective credits. Now, there's some definite nuances to this. I'd like to talk more. I think scheduling a phone call would be ideal because there's a few situations where certain age groups need a biz tech credit, a business technology credit, or art credit, and there are different ways you can get that out of a person's work experience if they have a job that lent itself to using technology in some capacity. They own their own business. Maybe they were in retail and they were responsible for doing display setup, and and maybe they designed marketing flyers. So there could be art there. There could be business and technology if they ran their own business or they worked on data entry or some type of IT. So there's ways to get other mandatory electives if it's pertinent to that student. But that's kind of a conversation that's better had, over the phone or during a video chat. But basically, this is a filled out CTE. We'll pop back to the Invictus drive now. So let me go back here. So just to recap, you've got two folders. Inside the enrollment forms folder, we have the application. Student needs to fill those 3 pages out, every single line. Very, very important. They need to bring in the mandatory docs mentioned here: birth certificate, social security card, driver's license, or state ID. Doesn't matter. You don't obviously need to drive to be in this program. You do need a state ID. Doesn't need to be from Ohio. That would be ideal. Not everybody does, but what's pivotal, especially if you have an out-of-state driver's license, is that you have a current proof of address showing you're an Ohio resident. That proof of address should be within 30 days. Again, avoiding junk mail, just trying to avoid junk mail at all costs. Bank statement, energy bill, a cable bill, a cell phone bill, the list goes on, a mortgage statement, a rental agreement, something that ties you to an address, obviously in Ohio, that's recent, that has your name on, is pivotal. And then again, this can't be overstated. It's vital that we get from students a proof that they ordered their transcript, and ultimately, the best case scenario is somebody would actually come in during the enrollment phase and have their transcript already. And again, it does not need to be official. It can be unofficial. Just needs to be a document from their previous school showing the credits that they earned, and if applicable, any OGTs or ninth grade proficiency tests or end of course exams that were passed previous to enrolling in the program. So enrollment form, mandatory docs, CTE form, we talked about filling it out. You fill out the job. You make sure that we know what company that student worked for, what the type of position was. Was it retail sales? Was it machining? Was it marketing? Was it, I don't know, a waiter? Whatever it is. Give the length of time in that position. Was it 10 years? Was it full-time or part-time? And then describe the position, or have the student describe the position in 3 bullets. If they were a machinist, they were in charge of maybe quality control, machine operation, and data entry. I don't know, just an example. They worked for, I don't know, Procter & Gamble, who knows, General Electric, doesn't matter. They worked for that company full-time from 1988 to 1998, doing the 3 things described. That would go in jobs. Hours, if it's full-time and they worked 1 year, it's 2,000. If they worked 10 years full-time, it's 2,000 times 10. And then giving the appropriate credit for that amount of hours. Listen, if it's more than a year of full-time work, just write 9 plus CTE, 9 plus career tech credits in the credits column. So that's how that's filled out. So once we've got the enrollment form, once we have the mandatory docs that we've talked about, and once the students filled out the career tech elective form, we move our students on, and you'll move your students on to something that we call learning evaluations. We have one that focuses on reading comprehension, the other that focuses on basic math. So let's take a peek at the Calvert reading. Simple assessment, or not simple, but at least not terribly long. 30 questions that you would have the students work through. As they're reading and taking in the information, they do not answer the questions on this document. Pardon me. They will use this bubble sheet. So the student will read the story, and when they go to answer question 1 through 30, they'll fill out A, B, C, or D. Okay, there's an E on here, but if somebody answers E, they're wrong, because guess what? When we look at the actual questions, it's A through D. So hopefully no one answers E. Yes, it is on the bubble sheet, but there is no answer E because it's not part of the options. So they would bubble in 1 through 30 as they work through the questions on the reading evaluation. Once they do the reading evaluation, they go on to a math evaluation, which is here. They may use the calculator on their phone to work through this. We don't really think that skews the score. I think it just kind of shows where they're at still, even with the calculator. Some of these, good for them if they know how to put fractions or, simple statistical items or, whatever in there. Obviously, that's something we'll work hard to teach them as they actually go through the program, but allowing them to use the calculator on their phone for the math is no big deal. Under no circumstance for the reading should they look up any answers. We want to see what they know, their natural vocabulary that they have now. And then same thing with the math. Never should they look up an answer, but using the calculator on their phone is fine. Again, as they work through on the math, and they can use scrap paper as well, they'll bubble in. It's a 30-question math evaluation as well. A through D, no E's. If they had an E, clearly they're just kind of filling in anything and not looking at the question. That almost never happens, so don't anticipate that happening with any Invictus enrollees. So another recap: filling out the enrollment form, providing the documentation specified here. Once that's done, helping the student complete the CTE form by filling out those 3 columns. And I can walk through kind of more examples if needed. Once those items are done, completing the reading as well as math assessment, pardon me, using the bubble sheets to fill in the appropriate answers on both of those evaluations. If a student has the enrollment form, the CTE form, both learning evaluations done, all the mandatory docs, birth certificate, driver's license / state ID, social security card, proof of residence, a transcript or a receipt for transcript, and they've done all the aforementioned items, they are someone that can sit class and move forward with us. What will happen is you'll just email us and you'll say, hey, look, we've got somebody that completed all the steps outlined in this video. They're ready to get a plan and, inevitably start class, and begin recovering credits and go through the whole 22 plus program. That will all be predicated on a student finishing all the steps outlined here. A student that does not finish each item outlined is not ready to sit class. They must gather all this information before starting. Why? Because they will not be eligible in the states due to state guidelines to get into the system to be reviewed and eventually awarded by the state. So if they don't do all this kind of what we'll call upfront work, it won't do them much good down the line. And again, if somebody does get to the situation where they're complete and ready for the program to begin, just an email will suffice letting us know. But the ultimate way, in addition to that email, is tracking the students on this spreadsheet I've included. So there's a spreadsheet in here that we have labeled Invictus Student Enrollment Data. I've done a few example entries. What we always do is put in exactly what the student came in with or didn't come in with. John Doe, he's incomplete and can't sit class for this reason. So the reason, well, we label him incomplete because he's missing, and we abbreviate it POR. He's missing his proof of residence. He has all the other mandatory docs, social security card, driver's license / state ID. He probably even ordered a transcript. Let's see, did he do that? Yeah, has a transcript, even has an IEP. He's done the learning evals. He's done the CTE. He's done all the other work, but he's missing the proof of residence. So he cannot sit class. He would not come to us to get a plan made because he needs to make sure that he gets us that proof of residence to get going. When you intake somebody, it's vital to create a note in this spreadsheet that has the student's first and last name, and then whether they're incomplete or complete. Let's look at a complete situation. So Jane Doe, our example below, John Doe, is complete. Why? Has all mandatory documents: birth certificate, driver's license / state ID, social security card, proof of residence, has at least ordered the transcript and has a receipt. So complete, has all mandatory documents. The work affirmation, which is the CTE, that's been done. Both learning evaluations are done. And then this student is a start over, meaning they don't have a transcript. They never went to high school. They only completed 8th grade. So in that situation, no need for a transcript, receipt, or transcript. They don't have one. They didn't do, or the student did not go to high school. So that student's totally complete, has satisfied all the mandatory requirements, and would be eligible to receive a plan and start the program. All we're doing here is simply noting what documents the student has brought in, as well as what documents the student still needs to bring in, if any, okay? It's very, very pivotal that these notes are accurate and spell out exactly what the student has and what the student doesn't have, okay? Again, probably good to jump on more of a live web video chat and go over this and go over, you know, a number of different examples. It's hard to wrap your mind around just by looking at this simple example and hearing this video. Much better to rehearse a number of different scenarios. So that is the usage of the spreadsheet. We're going to pop back in. So the student or what we've learned is what documents the student needs to fill out, how to input the student, you know, what they brought in and what they still need on the Invictus student enrollment data spreadsheet. But within the team drive, there's a whole nother thing, and that's student folders, okay? I don't have these loaded with anything, but when you get a student complete or incomplete, it's vital to save the documents that you're collecting, the enrollment forms and the CTEs and the mandatory documents, the learning evaluations, etc. You make the student a folder and you store all of those documents inside that folder. Again, if the student is complete, great, shoot us an email, alert us, we'll make a a plan for that student based on the credits we believe that they need to recover, or our best guess, which is called a bridge plan on what that student will need to recover. But if they're incomplete, you can let us know, but until they fulfilled all those mandatory steps, they'll just kind of be waiting or hopefully working towards doing such. So again, big recap here. Invictus's team drive is filled with two folders. Enrollment form, which we have the enrollment application. Mandatory docs aren't a form, but again, birth certificate, social security card, driver's license / state ID, proof of residence, and a transcript, or at least proof that you've ordered a transcript, like a receipt or some type of sheet showing that you've ordered it. They would give those docs to the enrollment or intake person, fill out our CTE. We went over that, complete the Calvert reading assessment, bubble in on the appropriate sheet, finish the Calvert math assessment, bubble in on the appropriate sheet. Once that's done, put in a note that reflects where the student is or isn't. Just follow kind of this example. And then in the other folder, all the information that the student has completed would be put into a folder that is named appropriately with the student's first and last name, and would contain all the information that we need to be provided with in order to get them going. So this is a basic walkthrough of how our enrollment and intake works. We definitely need to set up a video call to go over this a lot more in depth, but that's kind of the general look here at our enrollment process. So I'm going to call it a wrap for the moment, but hopefully that gives you a strong idea of how to enroll a student in our program.